Yeah, second day of my project and I am already struggling. Yeah, School of Dreams. Lesson 2. In our previous uh, in our previous lesson, we studied the most basic letters in the Korean alphabet. There's still some more letters that you will need to wrap your head around before we go any further. Thankfully, now that you know the basics for making syllables, the rest is just a matter of learning more letters of the alphabet. The first new letter that you will learn is confusing at first, but again, is something you need memorize before you go any further. Our new letter looks like O. It is in the previous lesson you learned that Korean syllables are always written in the one of the following ways. You also learn that number 2 is always a vowel, and the other numbers are always consonants. This means that number 1 is always a consonant, as well as number 3, if there is one. But does it mean that every syllable must start with a consonant? Sort of. When the letter O, well, it looks like O, is placed at number 1 in the syllable, it is silent, and the first sound that is made is a vowel in the number 2 position. Some examples: N, un, on, eop. N, un, un, Sorry, I spaced. My attention. Eop. On. Eop. Using this silent letter, we are also able to follow the rules that you learned earlier. Number 2 is always a vowel. What makes the letter O slightly more tricky is that it makes another sound when placed as number 3. When placed as number 3, it has the sound of NG, as in Volking. Some examples: Kang, Kang, Bang, Kang, Bang, King, Kong. The letter O can be placed as both 1 and 3. Ang. Okay. Sorry. In addition to that letter, there are some more letters that need to be learned. Luckily, each of the following letters is very similar in appearance, and some of the letters you have to the letters you have already learned. Unfortunately, this usually adds to the confusion for English speakers because it is very hard to distinguish between two different letters. So, zack. Oh, one moment. Here we go. I will present them in sets. I have read it, but I did not memorize it correctly because it was a little bit too confusing. Confusing. K set. K is a new letter. It is 2. Oh, wait. K, then it's double K, KK, it's 2K, placed side by side. It sounds very similar to the original K, but it is more forced at the beginning of the pronunciation. It is romanized as KK. Then there is a letter that looks like K, like a reverted F. This also sounds very similar to the original K, and it is romanized as K. Okay. B set. B is a letter you already learned. B. Then BB is a new letter. It is 2 B's placed side by side. It sounds very similar to the original B, but it is more forced at the beginning of the pronunciation. It is romanized as BB. Is also a new letter. Our moment. Is also a new letter. This also sounds very similar to the original B, but is romanized as P. It is closer to a P in English, but even in English, B and P are very similar. Say box and pox, and try distinguishing the two. So this is P. P, 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 P. B set, B, 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 P. So P is in a B set. J set. The J is a letter you already learned. J. JJ is a new letter. It is 2 J's placed side by side. It sounds very similar to the original J, but it is more forced at the beginning of the pronunciation. It is romanized as JJ. In J set, there is also a new letter. This also sounds very similar to the original J, but is romanized as ch. Ch. It is closer to ch in English, but even in English, J and ch are very similar. Say char and jar. And try distinguishing the two. Oh, sorry, I spaced out. D set. So ch is in J set. In B set there is a P, and in J set there is ch. Then there is a D set. D is a letter you already learned. D is a new letter. It is 2 D's placed side by side. It sounds very similar to the original D, but it is more forced at the beginning of the pronunciation. It is romanized as D. Then also known as the new letter. This also sounds very similar to the original D, but is romanized as T it is closer to a T in English. But even in English, T and D are very similar. Say task and dusk, task and desk, and try distinguishing the two. So there's a T. In D set, there is a T. In J set, there is a Ch. In B set, there is a P. P looks like... Can I visualize P? One moment. Yes, I can visualize P. I can visualize P. Can I visualize Ch? I can visualize Ch. CH. Yes, I can visualize it. Now, can I visualize T? T is in a D set. Oh, a moment. T is in a D set. Visualize T. One moment. Oh yeah, it looks like E, yeah? Looks like E. Yes, I can visualize it. So then there is S set, but it's just double S. As I said earlier, in one way, those letters are very simple because they are just building on the letters in which you already know. On the letters in which you already know. A typo. On the other hand, they add confusion because the new letters sound very similar to the previous ones. So, next page. All of the new letters can form syllables, just like the letters you learned in lesson 1. For example, DD, A, and G, dang, dunk. A is vertically aligned. So if we make a syllable, we would write dank, dunk. T-O-N, tonk. O is horizontally aligned, so we write it down. So if you make it the tonk. The following table, just like the tables presented in the previous lesson, will show you how to match up the letters you learned in this lesson to form syllables. This first table shows you all of these new letters plus the letters from lesson 1 without the use of final consonant. Again, while it is important to familiarize yourself with construction patterns of these syllables, you do not need to memorize any of them. All of the following can be found in words. Let's go next. Even to somebody who has been learning Korean for years, it is very difficult to distinguish the differences between K, KK, and it's K, still K, reverted F. J, JJ, and CH, B, BB, and P, D, DD, and T, S, and SS. If you have access to a Korean person, ask them to use those letters in words so you can try to get accustomed to distinguishing them. It's not easy, but doing so is not imperative at this point. In the previous lesson, I made multiple tables to present all of the syllables possibilities that could arise from the letters taught in lesson 1. Now in lesson 2, with the addition of 10 more consonants, presenting all possible syllable possibilities will be redundant. Instead, I have created a table that shows all of the consonants and vowels being used with O as the final consonant. Well, it's not O, it's NG, yeah? It's B, bink, bink, bonk, beong, beung, bunk, and bonk. Well, I can read this one moment. Let's go down. Hopefully you aren't too confused, because there are still some more letters that you need to know. In the next lesson, you will learn the final letters that you will need to know before studying real words and sentences. I suggest now that you try to make as many blocks as possible with the new letters that you learn. Before moving on to the next lesson, you should be able to recognize the new consonants that were taught, be able to make syllables by putting together formations of vowels and new consonants. Whew. I'm very tired, but I wanted to progress, so yeah. It was very rushed, but I still so far I repeated second time. So far I made it. Yeah, it's now today I think I memorized it. Yeah, well, I repeated it one more time, so one more time I memorized something I care about, yeah? Or try to memorize. Lesson 2 is over.